No, it's not at 10,000. It starts at 10,000.
At 10. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Are you changing your training at all, or are you just going to go up and acclimate?
Right. Got to hit the sauna. And
Yeah.
so I've been hitting the sauna like every day that I'm not doing a rest day. When you're at altitude, you need to increase carbs.
Yeah, you definitely
we have
quite a bit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Matchbox Podcast, powered by Ignition Coach Co. This week, we're doing things just a little bit different. Instead of fielding listener questions, we've actually got a topical episode here for you today. And we've got a special guest, David Van Orsdel, on the podcast with us this week. David is one of our Ignition Coach Co. Colleagues, experienced racer himself, and very knowledgeable in the field of exercise science. So, David, welcome to the podcast. You've been on before, so if you haven't listened to one of the episodes that David's been on before, go ahead and check back to any of those episodes. But yeah, we're happy to have you on this week, David.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So this week, if you guys haven't heard the news, last week, our very own Drew Dillman got into the Lifetime Grand Prix. So that means he is set up to do Leadville in a few weeks and has to rewrite his entire training plan based around racing at altitude. So we thought, what better timing than to do an episode on altitude preparation and all things racing and training at altitude. So that's what we're getting into this week. It's part information for you guys, the listeners, but also to give a little tips and, tricks from the trade for our man Dizzle over there, because we want him to go out, wheels ablazing in Leadville for the first time.
Because I need all the help I can get.
You probably could use a little help, considering the fact that you have, pretty much demised racing at altitude for years. So
yeah, I was thinking about this. I've never done Leadville. How high is Grand Junction?
Grand Junction's about 4,000 feet.
Oh,
maybe 3,500.
How high?
If you're talking about the race that we did in Grand Junction, the Grand Junction off-road.
Yeah.
So of the Epic Rides off-road races that you would have done, because I did all those with you that year. Whiskey was the highest, and that probably got up to like 7,500 at the peak.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the highest I've ever been. I don't know if I've ever even been over 7,500 feet.
Okay.
I know I haven't raced over that, because ever since Whiskey, I was like, this sucks. And I don't think I've raced an altitude race since Whiskey 50 a decade ago.
That was
with you.
2019. So yeah, 7 years ago.
That's wild. And I've just avoided it like the plague since then. And now I got to go do a race that's at 10,000.
Yeah. No, it's not at 10,000. It starts at 10,000.
At 10. I know. I'm just trying to trick myself.
Yeah. So for all of you Leadville fans out there, or any other high altitude races, this is the episode for you. So Drew, I will just start with you. So, it's recent news for you. You've only probably known for better part of just over a week, probably, right? That you're in the Lifetime Grand Prix and have to restructure your focus on preparing for Leadville now. Yeah. Are there any specific training considerations that you're making specifically at this point in the race up to, in the lead up to Leadville? Are you changing your training at all because of the fact that you're going to altitude, or are you just going to kind of go through some, acclimatization protocol? Are you changing your training at all, or are you just going to go up and acclimate?
Right. I would say the training is, for the most part, the same. If anything's changed, it's when I'm doing my workouts, I'm definitely thinking it's almost like I've got a bird's eye view of me climbing Columbine. I don't even know what Columbine looks like. You know what I mean? So I just have a vision. I'm envisioning myself climbing these mountains for long periods of time. Because right now I'm doing long bouts of tempo with some intensity mixed in. So and I was already going to do that anyways. I pretty much did a reset after Unbound. So now I'm kind of starting back over in somewhat of a base phase. So I'm doing a lot of tempo.
Okay.
The biggest thing that I've definitely done since getting into the GP, almost immediately was okay, got to hit the sauna. And so I've been hitting the sauna every day that I'm not doing a rest day. So 5 days a week usually. And I think that's good. I'm not seeing any negative performance from that. I'm not overdoing it so much to where it's negatively impacting my training the next day.
Okay.
I usually do it where I just do it in the evening after my kids go to sleep, because practically that's the best time to do it. So So yeah, I've been hitting the sauna a lot. Basically, the idea behind that is like that's poor man's acclimating. So like while I'm at sea level, I'll do that to the max until I can get to some higher elevation. And the plan is in about 2 weeks from now, I'll be getting to Flagstaff, Arizona. So I think 2 weeks from now, I've got the Rift this weekend and then the Dust Bowl. And then right after the Dust Bowl, the very next day, we're going to start driving to Flagstaff. And I don't know if I've actually, I just thought of this. I don't think I've actually told Caitlin that that's what we're doing. And maybe I should call her. I was going to tell her like before the podcast started, like, oh, hey, by the way, but she's not on.
She
So
didn't make it this week yet.
I'll have to call her and let her know when we're showing up to their house. But figure that's at like 7,000 feet. And even if Leadville goes really poorly, at least we got to see the Grand Canyon. So that's my thinking in going to Flagstaff, because it is kind of out of the way to go to Flagstaff, but it seemed like a lot better of a spot to go to acclimate.
So do you know, have you looked, I should know this because I could have looked it up, but is it real hot in Flagstaff right now, or would the climate be about the same as Colorado? I mean, it's super hot in Colorado right now.
I'm too busy. I was looking at the weather in Iceland, dude. So
okay.
I'm like going the other way.
Mean,
I'm going
it is 2 weeks out. So.
I'm like thinking, how cold is it going to be in Iceland? Not how hot is it going to be in Arizona?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that I've changed, and this is kind of ironic, because if you listen to the Bonk Bros, you'll get it. But I'm trying to shed some weight, couple pounds, nothing drastic. I usually sit between 10 and 11% body fat. And so I think if I were to get sub 10%, between 8 and 10% body fat, that would be, I'd be lighter with no negative performance hits. So last week I had a really good conversation with Alex from Second Arrow Nutrition, who I've been working with all year. I think we had him on the podcast earlier this year as well. Pretty sure. If not,
I don't know if we did. I think we had it scheduled and it didn't happen. But we should make that happen.
We need to have him on.
Yeah.
No, he came on once, but we should have him on again.
Okay, I don't know.
I'm
if
almost
I was there
positive.
I might not have been there. Maybe.
Anyways, me and him had a whole conversation of how to do that, how to best do that, tracking performance along the way. Because if you're going to lose weight but lose performance, it's not worth it. So that's like the number one concern I have. But so far it's been good. I hate being hungry, but I'm not that hungry that often. It's just like at designated points throughout the week where I'm trying to hit those deficits, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
Shed a couple pounds and then...
so as of now, before today's episode and you take away a bunch of new information and start revamping your whole training plan, as of now, the key things that you're doing to implement in your training specifically for racing at altitude would be reintroducing heat training, which is probably something you're not really doing normally in the summertime. Most people are riding enough in the heat that throwing in a bunch of additional heat training is probably not necessary and might be overstimulating. So, but that would be something that, I would say you're doing specifically for racing at altitude. And then, you talked about your, I guess you could call it your acclimation protocol, which would be going to 7,000 feet for, what are you going to go there for 10 days or something? And then go up to
we'll be at 7. Yeah, we'll be at 7,000 for about 2 weeks and then to Leadville.
Yeah. Okay.
When are you planning on getting to Leadville then? How much?
That was one of the questions I had was, I don't know when, because I do want to pre-ride as much of the course as I can. And they're probably going to, it sounds like they're going to have to change the course regardless, but I still want to pre-ride whatever course we are going to race.
Is that because of the fires? You're saying that?
Yeah, I heard that Twin Lakes is off limits until September.
Really?
So even if they the question might be if they're having the race, and if they are, it's definitely going to be a different course, it seems like.
Wow.
But I can't control that, so I'm just going to focus on my plan. And
regardless, if they still host the race, it's going to be at altitude.
Yeah.
There's no going down.
Yeah. Exactly. So where was I going? Oh yeah. So I don't know. I was planning on going out maybe Sunday or Monday before the race. The race is Saturday. That would put me at 7,000 for 2 weeks, and then wherever Copper is, Adam, for the remaining
9,000, 9,500.
Yeah, and then I would get to pre-ride the course some as well. And I think that's the biggest question I have is, what do I do that? Well, really, what do I do the whole time I'm at altitude? Because I know it's going to take a while to acclimate. So am I going to be able to do productive workouts If so, what kind? And then once I go even higher, do I do any intensity or do I just try to acclimate? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're hitting pretty much all of it. You're ticking all the main boxes. Like for those who don't have, I mean, we don't all have 2-3 months to sit up and do an altitude camp for a single race, especially. So the heat training stuff is definitely helpful, especially, I mean, like Adam, you said, a lot of times in the summer, people are, you know, training a lot in the heat anyway, but kind of doing some of that stuff. The nutrition stuff, that's good. Um, definitely, definitely the part I would add in there, and I'm sure the nutritionist, I'm sure you've chatted about this as well, is just some of the considerations for the increased carb intake that you're going to be, because
When
when
you're
you're
at
that high,
when you're at altitude, you need to increase
yeah,
carbs.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
definitely going to consume quite a bit.
we have a follow-up phone call before I go to altitude, and he said that that's gonna be about what to do when I'm at altitude. So he
Are you
probably
guys
is gonna talk
doing
about that.
any sort of prep for that? Like, because it's one thing to tolerate carbohydrates in the gut, and it's another thing to teach your body to oxidate those to turn it into usable fuel, essentially. To way oversimplify it.
Nah, we haven't got that far yet.
All right.
Yeah.
Because that's something I think a lot of people miss, is like they continue on with that through their normal preparation and they're not practicing the fueling, kind of high carb stuff. And if you're used to, I don't know, let's say 100 grams an hour, I'm just pulling a number out, and
Mhm.
then you try to bump it up to 120 because that's the actual demands during the race and you've never done that before, it's a recipe for disaster, especially as it's not that you're pushing more watts because you're actually pushing fewer watts, but metabolically it's the same or harder. So due
Yeah.
to the effect.
So I'm
So
saying, I was about to say, like, to see if I'm picking up what you're putting down, like, because you're gonna have less oxygen, your body's gonna be less efficient at burning those carbs. And so you're saying either I need to get accustomed to taking in more carbs now while I'm at sea level, or because then once I go to altitude, I'm probably not gonna be able to intake the same amount. Like if I'm doing 100 to 120 at races at sea level, I'm probably not gonna be able to hit 100 to 120 at altitude because of the less oxygen. Is that right?
or if you are planning to increase that not the number of carbs per hour. So let's say you bump that up 20 per hour
Mhm.
to account for the additional burn, so to
Yeah.
speak. It'd be difficult to, or near impossible to just bump that up to 140
Yeah.
just
Well,
because you've been
that's even at sea level, right? I mean, you kind
exactly.
of just have to train
So
your gut. But
yeah, you
yeah,
got to train.
I already kind of had a hunch that, like, yeah, my body's probably gonna burn fuel differently at altitude. So like a part of that 3 week before the race at altitude is definitely gonna be some like race prep carb intake sessions where like,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And I think like we're stopping at Flagstaff, I think that's ideal. Like I just had a conversation with one of my athletes and she's doing Leadville as well, but she's lucky to be based in Utah and she's at
Mm.
like her house is 7,000.
Oh, nice.
Perfect.
So that's like it's perfect. Like it's an ideal
You
world
mean
pretty much.
7,000's better than 400?
Yeah.
What? What? That's crazy. I thought I was getting some good altitude training here at 400 feet.
Just, yeah, stand up in the basement or in the attic for a while before war. The other thing too is, and I'm sure you've talked about this with a nutritionist, is the iron and
Yep. Yep.
like ferritin levels.
He wanted me to go get my blood tested, but like I leave for Iceland in 2 days, and I'm like, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like because that's the thing is testing. You hit the nail on the head there. Like, don't just
hmm
go out and take a bunch of iron if you're going
Yeah.
to like you need to see a doctor. And there are like natural ways too, like eating a red meat. Um, you can cook in an iron skillet. Some of that comes off as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it doesn't have to be in like a pill or supplement form, but yeah.
Yeah, especially with you cutting. That was gonna be one of my things was like, yeah, making sure you're focused on some kind of, I mean, it doesn't have to be supplementation, but focusing on targeted iron intake.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
Because that'll
call.
help you at altitude too.
Right.
But
Yeah. Good thing I'm sponsored by Good Life Proteins.
yeah,
They send me that red meat every month.
yep.
High quality. Yep. So we got that. that box kind of checked.
Okay. So David, when you're listening to Drew talk about his preparation, kind of some of the things he's doing, is there anything that stands out to you that you think he's missing out on in terms of things he could be doing at home for training for altitude?
I think in terms of his training, like the training prep, the actual riding part, I think it sounds like it fits in well with kind of your overall plan, but like in terms of the power demands that are kind of specific to Leadville, I think you're nailing it. Like kind of those, like it's just mountain bike stuff in Leadville or kind of marathon mountain bike in general. Like it's kind of like this balancing act. And I guess we could throw gravel in there too. I mean, you've got this balancing act of some high power efforts that then you need to recover from. And the higher that LT1 or your kind of other people call it fat max is, the quicker you can recover from that. And if you can be recovering at, I don't know, 300 watts versus 250 watts, it's going to be a huge advantage. So that tempo work is going to be huge in terms of that aspect. And then also just being able to hit those paces. Like, I think the biggest thing, if you're talking things that missing out on, it sounds like you're going to have a conversation here really soon, is strategies in terms of working on increasing your ability to oxidize the carbohydrates that are coming in, because it's a whole system. It's like a production line. You can get into the stomach, but then you need to digest it. It needs to get in the bloodstream. You need to be able to push it through. So ultimately, oxygen is getting to the muscles.
Yeah. I think the goal or the plan was to I'll take somewhat of a rest week after the Rift, between the Rift and the Dust Bowl, because we're going to be in Iceland, so I kind of want to enjoy that as well, and plus travel. So, but once I get to Arizona, I was going to just focus on doing most of my workouts, at least the intensity rides, on my mountain bike, and probably just I'm not familiar with the terrain, but like I'm sure there's a lot of climbing in the area, and just doing basically climbing efforts for the 2 weeks that I'm in Flagstaff, because I've already kind of built up this really big base of tempo stuff. I know that it's going to look different at altitude, but I was going to try to transition into like a threshold block and even if it's like, just below threshold or whatever. And plus I'll have to acclimate for like my altitude threshold, but basically just climbing efforts on the mountain bike leading up to Leadville, just to get really used to that effort level, since that's going to be a huge part of Leadville.
Yeah. And then you kind of touch on a couple other points that I would definitely, for any listeners out there, like the mountain, being specifically on the mountain bikes, that position is going to be different if you're used to riding on a road bike or gravel bike for a lot of time. The position is different. So definitely that's huge. And
I learned that lesson last year, a little sugar. I had like barely ridden my mountain bike and just got wrecked, like DNF'd because my back hurt so bad.
That was, I was going to go the same direction. David, was race specificity, riding your mountain bike as much as possible. For you, like, you've been putting so many miles in on the gravel bike that, that change in position could be pretty detrimental for you if you're not used to it. So I mean, if I were you, I'd probably only bring your mountain bike when you go out there.
Well, I have to bring my gravel bike because I guess you're going to Gravel Worlds on the way home. But I do plan on doing like majority of my training on my mountain bike before Leadville, for sure. Because I'm so used to my gravel bike at this point that I don't think it's going to be that big a deal to like jump back on that bike. I'm definitely more worried about the mountain bike. I'm riding it today, so I'm already prepping.
Got the suspension dial, all that stuff.
Well, no, I'm doing that today too. I'm going to do that, and then we're going to ride after that.
Nice. But then I think the other part too is like you're talking about what kind of training you do when you do get out there, because like there's kind of the two schools of thought in you're kind of hitting what I would recommend in an ideal world for people is do a period of to acclimate to a higher altitude, but not as high as Leadville, because Leadville starts to get towards the extreme of things. And that's it's a huge jump, even for people coming from 7,000, it's another 3,000 feet up where you're starting. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they're going like, okay, I'm at altitude, now I'm going to continue with my same training. One, you've got to, like you said, you got to adjust your expectations, and don't think that just because you did an FTP test under ideal conditions at sea level, that then you can go, okay, well, my FTP is X and I'll just knock 20 watts off of it and call it good. When you're out racing and training, if you do have the opportunity to get out and do like a high altitude training camp, the heart rate and even RPE needs to come into the picture a lot more, and you need to just kind of be patient, really.
Yeah.
And that gets into like pacing strategies too. I mean, patience, it's so easy to go out too hard and then lose minutes or hours.
One metric that I've added to my Wahoo the last month has been ventilation. And so I've been looking at that more and more every ride, especially on endurance rides, but even on workouts, I'm like keeping an eye on it just to really right now, just to like get an understanding of what that looks like when I'm doing certain levels of intensity. So I'm starting to get a pretty good, an accurate idea of like where my ventilation is for certain effort levels.
Yeah. Now you're
And so,
talking, are you talking like using timeware
yeah,
or?
timeware, yeah. And we're
Yeah,
gonna have
yeah, we use that as
Arnor.
well.
I think his name's Arnor.
Yeah.
Arnor. He's the founder. He's already said he wants to come on the podcast to talk about it. But I told him let me use the thing for like a month or two, and then we'll have you on because like I want to
Yeah.
build up some questions for you first.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
just
coming
saw,
up.
and I was just with him last year, just before the tour. There's a
Oh, nice.
cycling science conference. I was there with
sick.
him and the Timeware guys. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I've
Now,
been listening to
now,
podcasts and all
David,
that.
I'm curious, because you've got quite a bit of experience with timeware. I
Yeah.
think the last podcast we had you on, we were specifically talking about
yeah, you're right.
timeware.
Yeah,
and
yeah, it's true. That's exactly what we're talking about.
David's the reason they finally sent me one. I poked the guy and David poked the guy enough that he finally sent me one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Now, David, though, what has been your experience taking the timeware, and using ventilation or ventilatory rates at altitude? I've never used the monitor, so I don't have any data to back this up, but to me, it seems like when you go to altitude, your ventilatory rate changes so drastically for, personally, that seems like it would be a completely arbitrary metric for me. But maybe your experience is different, or maybe the science within the technology within the device accounts for that somehow. What is your take on that?
So maybe it's helpful to break down how the device works, because
Sure.
So it's got a strain gauge or a stretch gauge on the back. So it's not just the number of breaths per minute that you're taking, but also it's approximation
volume, right?
for the volume. Exactly.
Yep.
And so I think,
and it's just the difference. It's not, it's just accounting for the difference of each breath that you're taking, like how much it's expanding and extracting, contracting, and then taking the difference of that between breaths, I guess.
Yeah. So that's the strain gauge portion. That's what that's doing.
And it gives you like a unit that would be very specific to each person. So it's not comparable person to person, but the numbers are very, very accurate within a single individual.
Okay, sure.
So that's like we were chatting with the head of performance at Visma there at that conference. And he said he loved it because the riders can't compare between each other, like watts, so you are actually riding to a specific metabolic area. So it kind of takes coming back to the altitude part is what's interesting about altitude is because the air density, there's not less oxygen in terms of a percent, it's less dense. So you can't take in as much oxygen. So when essentially the air goes into the lungs and the blood is passing through the lungs to try to pick up the oxygen, there's not as much oxygen there. There's a signal there, and you start to breathe faster to try to compensate for this. So what happens at altitude, you'll breathe faster, but then that tidal volume it's less because you're just trying to.
So you're breathing in less. More shallow. Exactly. Right. Quicker, shallower.
Because you're just trying to move oxygen in and out. And the same thing happens, actually, you'll see it in terms of a workout, or the kind of the breaths times the volume will remain, that number will stay the same. But as you get tired, you tend to breathe faster.
More frequent. Yeah,
you breathe more frequent because there's a very direct correlation between your RPE and how fast you're going. And there's a lot of studies to back that up. But to get to the altitude, you'll do that. What's interesting about the using timeware ventilatory data is that it does drift as you get tired because your body's trying to keep up with an increased metabolic demand, or you're becoming less efficient. You can look at a number of ways. But what you can be sure of is when that drift is happening, it's not happening due to other factors such as heat or could be heat, it could be you're tired day to day. For example, a lot of times you'll see the heart rate is suppressed when athletes will say, "Oh, I'm in really good shape."
Dehydration,
too much coffee,
caffeine level. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what's interesting about that. So I'll be curious to see how you use it, Drew, actually, while you're at altitude, especially in your training, just to see
Yeah.
like I did a
I guess
workout.
I guess I was thinking the opposite of Adam. I'm thinking like ventilation is almost a more solid metric than heart rate and power. So if anything, I would look at that more than I would heart rate or power, and then adjust my power based off of kind of what my ventilation is saying.
Yeah,
That's
because
what
it
I
is
was
kind of
thinking.
like that's dead on. Like it's kind of a miniature mini lab that you've
Yeah.
got going around on you. Like
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, I
so
mean,
it's
it's like it's like the way that I was listening to a podcast, and this is crazy. And I'm bummed that Dylan's not on here, and I know he's not going to listen to this, but is like you know how he's been blowing. This is what. Never mind. I'll just save this for the episode when the Tom Ware guy comes on. But
Okay.
ventilation is pretty interesting, and I'm starting to get more and more convinced that it's like a metric that might change the way we train.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess I was thinking in terms of volume still, but in my mind I was thinking in order to account for the lower density of oxygen, you had to basically take in more volume to
Yeah,
account for
so
that. So that's why I was thinking that like it just
the
wouldn't correlate. But I guess David, what you're saying is that that's actually not the case. Like your uh, tidal volume actually should remain the same at altitude.
yeah, and you just kind of start to like hyperventilate, so to speak. I mean,
Sure.
like
Okay.
I mean, it's not really a hyperventilation, but you get the point. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're just
Which that
breathing
makes
fast.
sense. You're not all of a sudden like expanding your lung capacity, right?
No,
Yeah.
exactly. There's only so far they can expand, and then there is
Yeah.
also an aspect that kind of touches on the nutrition part is that the air's dry too. You know, when you're kind of dehydrated and it's
Mm.
in the air, or you're on an airplane for a long time and you try to take this huge breath, like it's uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
it's one, and due to kind of partially the dry air and also that you're breathing faster, there's a higher dehydration risk to kind of touch back on the nutrition
Yeah.
side of
Yeah.
things. So
That makes
Yeah, I've
sense.
known that for
Yeah.
a long
and you
time.
don't even realize it because I mean it's the air's so dry you don't realize you're sweating. It's just evaporating.
Totally.
So.
Yep.
If this helps you understand it, Adam, the metric that you look at on the Wahoo is actually 1 minute ventilation average. So it can measure breath rate and it can measure tidal volume and all that, but ventilation is like both of those things combined. And so like your 1 minute ventilation is how much air you're breathing in. So that includes your breath rate and your tidal volume over the
Sure.
course of a minute. And
Yeah.
so it's a much more like stagnant number. Like it goes up slow, comes down slow because it is a 1 minute average. But
Yeah. Have you got the 15-second average on yours as well?
yeah, but I really like the 1 minute more because like
Yeah.
I just would get distracted because I'd take a deep breath and then watch it go up 10 and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's distracting. And so I
Yeah.
just did the 1 minute average.
Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like that I think touches on like if you're doing a lot of tempo stuff, I think the 1 minute average, like that's perfect. But if you
Right.
start doing if you're using it more for a threshold, like traditional threshold, like LT2 stuff, then
Maybe
it can be it's quite interesting because that might be a 4 to 7 10-minute interval.
Yeah.
And then the 15-second, and that's something else to touch on is that ventilation rate responds much quicker than heart rate does. Heart
Right.
rate, there's always that lag, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like, I find it to be, like you said, Drew, it's like, it's not quite instantaneous like power would be because it's an internal metric, not an external like power, but it's very quick.
Yeah. But sorry, it's somewhat of a rabbit trail. But yeah,
Yeah.
I say all that to say I am looking forward to seeing how the ventilation will look at altitude because I think it's gonna be depressing how my ventilation is in the right zone, and how low my watts are. So I'm already like preparing for that. Like, oh, okay, ventilation says I'm right at LT1, but my power sucks. But that's just part of it, right? Like,
I mean, it's like. Sorry, go ahead.
Dylan's supposed to send me his race files from Leadville because me and him weigh about the same. Our FTP is about the same. My goal is to do better than him. So like using his race files, I think would actually be pretty good data for me.
I still want him to send me his race files because I want to figure out how I went so much slower than him with almost the same metrics. It doesn't make sense to me still, but
I'm like. Yeah, because it's essentially your whole, like, if you take a traditional power curve, like when we're training, we're trying to shift that thing to the right.
Yep.
You know, higher power output at same or lesser heart rate. And at altitude, it's going to the left. It's going the opposite way.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. It's like you just lost a bunch of fitness overnight.
Yeah. So, and the one thing to keep in mind too, which is kind of hard to wrap your mind around, is that it is an exponential curve in terms of the effects at altitude. So the delta from going from sea level to 7,000 feet, acclimating at 7,000 feet in Flagstaff will probably be about the same delta that you'll experience going from 7,000 feet to 10,000 feet.
So when should I go sooner then? I mean, we can go.
No,
I guess it depends on your body.
I'm just saying, like, you can't just be like, okay, I'm acclimated at 7,000 feet. Like, I'll drop it a percent or two because I'm going to 10,000 feet. You need to basically take that same percentage drop from sea level and apply it again. Going to altitude.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
That's a really good point, Adam. You think, oh, it's just 3,000 more. It's like, but it's
not like going from 0 to 3,000.
No.
That 7 to 10,000 is exponentially more impactful.
But also over the course of the 2 weeks that I'm at 7,000, it's almost as if my FTP, obviously it'll be really low when I get there, but it will come up. As I acclimate to 7,000 feet, it should rise a little bit, right? By the end of that 2 weeks.
A little bit. I mean, that's what acclimating is all about. But let's say the hit that you're going to take going from 400 feet, call it sea level, to 7,000 feet. Let's say that's probably going to be somewhere around 12%, I would guess, give or take. You might see a 15% hit on days 2 through 5, and then it'll slowly kind of equilibrate up to about 12%. You're not going to go back to 0%. You're still going to have a hit of, call it 12%. And that's when we get into the acclimatization protocol at some point, maybe that's where we're going here. Acclimatizing is less impactful than people realize. I think people try and equate it to, I can just be as good at altitude as I was at sea level once I've acclimatized, but that's not the case. Like you're basically just trying to reduce the amount of impact that it's going to have on your performance, and that reduced impact depends on the individual drastically. But it's probably only going to be on the percent. Someone like Keegan, who just performs unbelievably at altitude, maybe his is actually more like a 10%. Once he's acclimated, it might reduce his impact by 10%. And then someone who doesn't adapt well to altitude, it might only reduce it by 1%. But it's only going to be like 1 to 10% that you're going to like regain from the drop in performance. So like going up to 10,000 feet, I want to say if you're acclimated, it's going to be anywhere from like a 17% drop down to like a 22 or 23% drop, depending on if you're acclimated versus not. So it's only going to be a 2 or 3% deviation for most people. It's not as much as you think.
Yeah. Right. I think I remember Dylan saying that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then the other thing, you have to think about that impact of how that's impacting the last finishing touches that you're putting on the training.
Yep.
Yeah.
As well, and that's why I think you're doing it in the right way with a move for a couple of weeks at 7,000 feet, as opposed to being like, I'm going to spend 3 weeks at 10,000. I think there would be, my personal opinion is that in all likelihood, your performance would suffer because you would take so long to acclimate there. And you wouldn't be able to do any of that kind of threshold sort of work that you're planning to do. Or you could,
right?
But it would, yeah.
You can, but it's going to be a highly, truncated rate. So, again, like let's say you go and fully acclimate for 3 weeks at 10,000 feet. Instead of being, taking a 23% hit, now you're only going to take an 18% hit. So, 5%, which is not insignificant, but now you're also taking a 20% hit for your last 3 weeks of training. So that's something that you have to factor into, and that's what David's getting at. So, it's kind of like maybe your training's already topped off and you're not really gaining that much in those final 3 weeks anyways, but if you're still putting on like the finishing touches of preparation block going into Leadville, taking that performance hit for those final 3 weeks can actually be more detrimental than it would have been, you're gonna make up for by acclimating.
Yeah.
So like for you, like going to 7,000 feet,
acclimating if you get there and you can't ride for the whole time you're there.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's why going to 7,000 feet, the cool thing is with the fact that it is exponential is, you're acclimating to 7,000 feet, but you're able to train still at, say, half the capacity of the performance drop than you would if you were at 10,000 feet.
And it's still productive. You're getting
it can still be very productive. Yeah.
I did want to wonder, like, once I get the Flagstaff. When should I introduce intensity? Like I'm figuring like first 2 days at least, I'm probably just riding endurance to kind of just suss out how I feel. And then maybe by the third day I could try a workout, or is that too soon?
Yeah, so I think this is a perfect time to talk about trying to have an acclimatization protocol versus some of the other approaches. So David, I'd love to hear your take. So, let's talk about Drew.
Yeah.
He's taken the traditional altitude acclimatization protocol here, going to 7,000 feet for 2 weeks, and he's going to go up to 1,000 feet for the last week. What would be your kind of approach in that final preparation phase for Drew or another
Yeah.
athlete in this case here?
Yeah, and I think like you're on the right track there to like a few days. Definitely minimum 2-3 days
Okay.
of taking it easy. Like, and if you can build that in ideally into your training, like if you can, it sounds like you're coming from another race anyway,
Yeah.
so you might need a little bit of recovery, but
Right.
not tons.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard you plan on hitting that race or how difficult.
Hopefully I'll win.
Yeah, that's it.
So it'll probably be hard, but that's why we're
Yeah.
planning to drive right after, because I'm like, I'm already going to have to take some rest days after that race. And so might
So
as well
race
knock
day is
out.
what, Saturday?
Yeah, we're going to
Okay,
drive
and then
Sunday, Monday.
you're going to drive Sunday, Monday, get to
Yeah.
Flagstaff Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not
Yeah.
with enough time to ride. Like maybe I stop and ride somewhere along the way, but I'm not going to ride in Flagstaff till that Tuesday because it's just going to take so long to
Right.
get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
So
one thing, and David, you're probably going to get at this, but one thing that I would keep in mind is if for whatever reason, let's say you go super deep at Dust Bowl because, someone shows up and you've got to,
$1,000 on the line, dude.
yeah, you got
Hell yeah.
you got to go super deep. It's harder to recover at altitude too. So you got to factor that in for the first couple days that you're at altitude. Is if you're still recovering from that race, you want to make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time to recover too from that before you start your high intensity training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like the fact that you've got 2 weeks, that's good. When we used to go, like this is way back in the day, we would go up to Livigno in Italy, where it used to be kind of like the cool place to go, but it wasn't that high. It was like 665, I think, somewhere around there. But it was like the first week was just, there's a lake around there and people would be doing laps around the lake, just taking it super chill, just to allow the body to do that. Now you've got like a 2-day drive, which is not easy either after a race. Yeah, I'd give it a few days of taking some easier stuff and then slowly introducing, like a lot of things I tell my athletes is it's not like an either or. Sometimes not every workout is a workout that you need to smash and be completely destroyed after. Like you can do some light tempo riding, like let's say, maybe a normal workout for you is 4 by 30 minutes of it, or I'm just making it up. There's nothing to stop you from doing 2 by 20 as you're kind of ramping into it. You're still going to get a little bit of
Kind of
stimulus.
stair step yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But I'd give yourself a few days to kind of start to get used to it, and also allow your body needs the energy to be able to start producing more red blood, higher plasma, more red blood cells, all that stuff. Like if you're not giving it the opportunity, then you're also kind of blunting that effect as well. I don't know if is that your experience too, Adam? How you've done things in the past when you've gone up there?
Yeah, I'm not someone that performs well at altitude in general. So for me, I've always found like days 2 through 5 are usually pretty horrible for me. Like I can try to do some intensity, and usually, unfortunately, for most of the races that I've done, the race falls on day 3 or 4. So it's like the absolute worst is what, is race day. So I mean, I can do some intensity, but it's certainly not going to feel well, and I'm gonna have a hard time recovering from it. But usually I start to come around after about day 5, day 6, day 7 and beyond. That's kind of when I start to ramp uphill again. So, for me, I just, I try to limit intensity for those first few days, to kind of go on the counter approach, knowing that I don't adapt to altitude very well and it takes time for me. I usually try to, if I can, implement the last minute approach where I show up less than 24 hours before the race, and I'm usually done with the race before 24 hours is even surpassed. Because, that first day for me, I usually feel much less impacted than I do days 2 through 5. And it's just not always logistically feasible for me to go out there for more than 5 days. So in that case, like I'm not even trying to do anything. I just show up and race and get out of there as quick as possible.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's
you know,
the
it's. I mean, I would. I mean, I don't know if there's as much research as there is just anecdote on that approach. You know, showing up late versus acclimatized. I mean, the research I think shows that even having 2, 3, 4 days of acclimating on paper is better. But for me, anecdotally, and you know, personally with my experience, showing up last minute and the first day I usually feel the best compared to days 2 through 5.
Yeah, and I think you also hit a good point there is logistics.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
how you're, logistically, Leadville's remote. Like it's not flying into.
That's been the biggest. Part of me wishes I would just go in the day before, but I'm like, but what you just said kind of convinced me. Like, man, if I'm going to go all in on this, I should do it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I think
Ultimately, that's why I decided to go out so early.
Yeah, and I think then getting to 10,000 feet a week early, like, because then there's other approaches that don't have anything to do with the altitude of just knowing the course,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I've never done it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think for you, Drew, like getting familiar with the descents, you know, we're talking specifically at Leadville. I know it's not a, you know, quote unquote real mountain bike race, but when you're taking some of those descents at 30, 40 miles an hour on chunky, rutted out double track that's steep, with some loose corners, like, you know, you can lose a lot of time on those descents, and that's free time. And you're a good technical rider, but if you're not familiar with the course, I think that's going to come at a detriment to you. Like you're not going to be able to utilize that as much to your advantage. So I think for you, like getting out there and just being able to ride those descents and get comfortable on that is going to be the most important thing. I mean, a climb's a climb for the most part. You know, as long as you know approximately how long the climb is going to take, you know, you can kind of settle in and pace yourself. But knowing those descents, I think for you is going to be valuable, especially at the front of the race. You know, I mean, the front of the race goes wicked fast down those descents, and it can get dicey.
and with the air so thin, you can fly.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
With the air being so thin, you can you can fly.
Less friction.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there was something else too that you mentioned that I can't.
Were any of these prompts we had already pulled up? We already hit all of them.
Yeah. So I think we can touch on pacing a little bit, Drew, for you. And I think this is where actually you going up to 7,000 feet will be beneficial too in this regard. Is, you know, specifically pacing Leadville, but just in general pacing yourself at altitude and kind of how pacing differs at altitude versus sea level. Because I don't think, I think a lot of people, what they tend to do as well is like they take their sea level pacing approach and just say, all right, well, I'm just going to take that same approach, apply it to racing at Leadville. I'll factor in the altitude. Sure, I'll take the 20 or 22% off the top and, you know, adjust my, you know, FTP in that regard. But then I'll take the same pacing strategy and apply that. And I think that's also a mistake that people make. And that's why you see a lot of guys and gals go out really strong in the first half of the race and then really taper off in the second half of the race. And unfortunately with Leadville, the second half of the race is very challenging. You've got 2 really hard climbs in the second half of the race that, you know, people kind of underestimate. You know, and when you're hitting power line at 80 miles in, you know, that hits a lot harder because at altitude, you know, when you're at sea level, you know, you can climb for 30, 40 minutes at a hard tempo and then recover and do that again and again. And as long as you're fueling well and staying, you know, below your lactate threshold, then, you know, you can probably do that time and time again. But, you know, the biggest thing at altitude is that your recoverability is hindered greatly. So, you know, let's say
recoverability. You just make that up. I think you just made that word up.
Recoverability?
Recoverability.
I don't know. I think it sounds like a word to me.
It does sound like a word, and we all know what you mean by it. So I don't know if that's a real word.
Your ability to recover. If you want to flip it on its head, but
no, I like it. Recoverability.
Pretty sure it's a word. But anyways, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like you're not going to recover from riding 40 minutes at 80% of threshold as efficiently as you're going to at sea level. And that's the challenge. And especially at Leadville, that's why most people, they go out the first climb and blow themselves up after the first climb and
that's even with the 20%. That's even with them riding at their
20-some% off the
designated
top, for sure.
Altitude FTP.
Yeah. So that's where I think for you, being able to go and do some fatigue resistance training at altitude will be valuable because you'll start to understand kind of, you know, what that impact is going to be for you. And I think that's unique to each individual too.
Because if anything, like I mean, I don't know how much fitter or stronger I'm going to get if I do a durability workout when I'm out there at altitude. But if anything, just for the knowledge of knowing, oh, snap, this is how I feel at mile 80. Like,
Totally.
because that knowledge will be more worthwhile than even the training itself, probably. Okay. Yeah. That's good to know.
And I think a big thing too is like,
I should probably only do that like once though, right? Like I don't want to, I don't want to go like too deep at altitude too many times and then be in a hole, right? Like I'd probably do that.
So here's what I would say.
That would probably be a workout that I would do towards the end of my time at Flagstaff once I've kind of acclimated, but before I go to Leadville, right?
I don't know if I would agree with that. And here's what I would say. I think there'd be more value in doing 3 or 4 of those kind of workouts and really getting some of the adaptations from it, but also like really, familiarizing yourself with what that effect for you individually is of riding at a hard tempo at altitude and trying to recover from that.
Yeah.
And then you just modify your recovery afterwards. So, instead of doing, stacking 3-4 days in a row, maybe you're only stacking 2 days in a row and then you're taking a rest day. So you're not getting as much training volume in at altitude, but I don't think that's going to matter as much.
But those key sessions are going to be more, I'm going to be able to get more of those key sessions in, which are going to be more important than the volume.
I think so for you.
I agree. I think that's a good approach.
And I don't know if you're kind of alluding to this, Adam, but I think a big part of it too, there's also a psychological component to all of this as well. Like you definitely, I don't think any of us here I think all of us have a huge respect for the altitude and like 10,000.
That was the word I was going to use was respect. Yep.
Yeah, respect. You've definitely got to respect.
Wait, what do you mean? Fear, respect is the same thing.
Well,
right?
that's perfect. You said fear because I think a lot of it too is like when you build up a monster in your head, there's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that happens a lot of times. If you definitely want to respect it, but if you're coming and going, oh, this is going to be bad, that's going to be bad, that's going to be bad. Sure enough, things are going to be bad. You know, if you spend too much time focusing on what could go wrong, if you do spend a bit of time going, okay, this could be great. If I implement this and I have the respect for the altitude and I have this pacing strategy and kind of the aspect of doing some of those harder workouts when you're at Flagstaff, that'll give you the knowledge and the ability to go, okay, there's no like big scary monster back here of this altitude for me because I've done this before. I know how this feels. I can still respect the altitude and what impact that's going to have on me and my performance, but I'm not thinking of it. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be terrible.
I think I'm optimistic. Like, this will be the most that I've ever acclimated. I'll pre-ride the course. Like, I feel like I'm going to do, because I'm doing everything within my power to show up the most prepared on race day. I feel like that's going to give some confidence.
Yeah. Well, I think having the respect is important because it's what helps you stay disciplined, and staying disciplined within yourself is going to be really important for the first 2 climbs of the race, especially
on the race day.
On race day, and that's where having, I think the confidence that, hey, you know what, there's a group going up the road. I know they're going way too hard, but you don't have that race day fear of like, if I let that group go, my race is over. If you're confident that, hey, you know what, I know I can outclimb these guys up Columbine. I know I can outclimb these guys at 80 miles in going up Pipeline or Power Line.
I'm not so worried about it.
Then yeah, exactly. Like that's having the respect and discipline, but also like letting go of that fear too. And I think for a race like Leadville, that's really important and valuable. And that's where I think doing some of those workouts that are like, really hard fatigue resistance workouts can be very beneficial for you in just helping you wrap your mind around what that pacing is going to look like on race day. But again, I mean, I think for most people, the problem they make is they under respect and appreciate the impact that the altitude is going to have on the recovery aspects. Like they understand that it's going to take a hit off their FTP, but they don't factor that hit into their recovery between all the climbs, and at Leadville, there's a lot of time between the climbs where you're at a pretty high pace. When you're riding the flats, you're still going high endurance pace. It's definitely not recovery, in the descents, depending on how hairy they are with the conditions, like sometimes that's not even recovery. So I think a lot of people just underestimate how long it's going to take them to recover from those climbing efforts. And then that's why later in the race, it really catches up to them.
Yeah, that checks out. I like that.
And every time that you're making kind of a surge for the sake of having done so, that's a risk at altitude.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you don't know when you're going to have to pay that back sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't plan on riding like over FTP at all when I'm there. Like, I don't plan on doing any kind of super high intensity intervals because I just don't think that's what I should be doing. Like, I don't
The
think
only
that's
value
probably,
would be in kind of being able to estimate approximately where that is for you.
yeah.
I agree with you. Like, I think a part of it is too is you're in an unknown in terms of where is that breaking point for you
Mm.
at that altitude. It's kind of like if you've never, like if you're turning a bolt on you don't know where the breaking point is until it breaks.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So if you don't really know, if you've never done it before, not saying go out and break yourself before
Yeah,
the race,
right.
but like kind of get an idea of where that might be, I think can be super beneficial.
Totally. Yeah, especially, not having done the course before. Power line climb at 80 miles, like the bottom 10 minutes or so, like you're going to be forced to go threshold. There's just no way around it. Everyone wants to say like, yeah, I'm just going to ride under threshold the whole time. But the gradient is so steep that, I mean, you have to go threshold in order to get up it even or higher.
Yeah.
So like, there are forced times in the race where you just can't control it. You have to put out power. I mean, unless you're Keegan and your threshold's still 400 watts at altitude, but that's the rarity. So
dude, with how little he is, he's not even close to 400 watts, buddy. He's not even at 350. He's just little.
He says his altitude adjusted FTP is like 385. That's that's not my words. That's just his words.
I thought it was like 340 or something.
No, dude, he's not that small. He's not that small. He's like 145, 146 or something like that.
Yeah, he's like 64 kilos.
Yeah, he's not that small. But anyways, like there's going to be times in the race where you have to go over threshold, and I think for you, kind of like David's saying, knowing that limit is going to be important.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's touch on.
I guess I meant like I'm not about to do any 30-30s when I get there.
No, and that's a totally
I ain't
different
doing
system.
I ain't doing VO2. I ain't doing 30-30s.
Yeah.
Like if anything, I might do some like upper threshold, like 105, 110%, something like that. Like
like 4 or 7 minute intervals.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Last one here. Okay, so if you had the choice, you're at sea level, you can't go up and acclimate. Let's say you can only get there 1 to 5 days at most before the race. What would be the thing that you would try to implement at home to help you pre-adjust to altitude? There's things like heat training, which we already talked about. You could spend the money and get something like an altitude tent to try and sleep in. Do you think any of those things are really worth the squeeze, or are you better off just spending that mental and physical energy on the actual training?
Dude, sauna. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. Like, is that
it's like low hanging
to you guys?
fruit.
Is that worth it?
Yeah, that's worth it. But I think like don't take away from your training. Like if you've only got X number of hours a week, don't be taken away going, I need to sit in the sauna for an hour.
Right.
Like it's an extra thing and it's definitely there. The altitude 10, you need a lot of time sitting in there, and they're noisy and they're humid and
they cost more. Like I'm pretty
cost
sure
a lot of money.
an altitude sleep might cost
get a
twice
gym,
as much as what I built my sauna.
Yeah, you could fill a bathtub full of warm water and later.
That's another protocol. Yeah.
I've actually seen you can get these little devices that basically turn your bathtub into a jacuzzi. It's like a little heating bubbling device that you can drop in your tub. So it's like you can actually keep that thing pretty hot. So I agree that's I'm glad you guys are on the same page. I think if you asked this question 3 years ago, before all the emergence of the heat training, research and data came out, I think I still would have said altitude 10 is probably not worth the squeeze. I think you're going to compromise too much of the rest of your life and just your, again, recoverability by spending too much time in that thing. But with the data that's out there on heat training, I agree. I think that is low hanging fruit for most people.
I mean, I feel like just anecdotally, the impact that I feel that it's had on just my sea level performance is like, oh snap! Of course, I'm going to do this for altitude. Like the whole idea is it's just making your blood more efficient. And what do you need at altitude? Like more efficient blood. So I'm going to do that as much as I can before I go.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Cool. Anything else you guys want to touch on the topic?
Man, my blood is like so thick right now. It's barely moving through the veins, man. I'm just kidding.
David, you got anything else?
That covered a lot of it. I mean, I have some I haven't even looked at where the feed zones are and all that, but you don't normally have to race with a pack, right? You can just grab bottles at the feed zones.
You won't. You won't need a pack as long
and
as you've
cold
got.
It's cold at the start, right? And it gets warm at some point, but not it's not ever hot, right?
I would not say that.
It does get hot.
Yeah. It could be one of those days where you go through the widest range of extremes that you've ever witnessed. So
because that happens at
it could be
altitude.
below freezing at the start. It could be 30 degrees at the start, literally. And then it could be 80 degrees when you're climbing up the road climb back up to the top of St. Kevin's. And 80 degrees at 10,000 feet feels exuberantly hotter.
Yeah, the sun just cooks you.
Yeah. So I would say, you got to kind of prepare for both ends of the extreme.
You know what?
I mean, the race is cold at the start. Like the first climb, I would say I usually am still cold until I get to the top of the first climb.
You talking about hitting all the different temperatures did remind me. I have spent time at high altitude. It's just been in Ecuador.
Okay.
I spent a summer in Ecuador at 10,000. I think it was at 9 or 10,000 feet. And it was like that. In the morning, you've got a sweatshirt on and you're freezing. And by noon and the sun's up, it's like you're getting blazed by the sun.
Yeah.
So I do remember that.
Same thing. Yeah.
Now that you bring it up. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So you got to be prepared for that, but you won't need a pack. There's enough aid stations, and I'm sure you'll have enough support crew out there that can bounce around, and you can hit an aid station 5 times in 100 miles and just get by on 2 or 3 bottles pretty easily. Your bike carries 2 bottles?
2 little bottles. So
2 little bottles plus a jersey, pocket bottle.
I think I'll probably just run bibs in a jersey instead of the skin suit. So then I can put a bottle in the back.
Your skin suit doesn't have a pocket?
It does, but it has the 2 pockets. So I might just run a jersey for.
You want to pop it down the front, get the arrow effect?
I would still run the skin suit, man. I think that's low hanging fruit. If you're going through all the trouble to go through 3 weeks of altitude acclimatization.
Our kits are pretty tight fitting as well, but we'll see.
I think the wind tunnel data would say otherwise.
All right. I hear you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, 2 bottles even. I from what I remember, I don't think the last couple times I did, I don't think I even had a pocket bottle. I think I just got by on 2 bottles, which is plenty.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a lot. I mean, that was helpful. I mean, especially the stuff on, I was on the fence about doing any kind of durability type workouts once I got there because I was afraid of the hole that I might dig. But what you said makes a ton of sense. The knowledge of that, and then just not stacking so many days and taking more rest days. I hadn't thought. I mean, I hadn't thought that far ahead yet, but those are 2 things I'm definitely going to now do because of this.
Yeah, just stay on top of the nutrition. I know if you're trying to drop some weight, it might be tricky, but
we're trying to do most of that before I go. I think so that once I do get there, it's not as stressful.
Yeah.
Then once I get there, it's just maintained
of the carb intake, on and just after the bike, within an hour, it'll help you bounce back quite a bit. You already know that.
Yeah, sick. And I appreciate you guys giving me a crash course on Leadville.
Man, it'll be exciting. I'm stoked for you. Yeah, excited to see how things go. Hopefully the race is still on. Fingers crossed, and sending up the prayers for all the people that are affected by the fires, obviously, because that's it's about more than just the race, obviously, but we're here for the race too. So hopefully the race can still happen. I'll be out there, Drew. So look forward to cheering you on.
Yeah,
course side.
Dude, we're staying together. I think.
I know. Yep.
Cool.
All right, sweet, David. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. We'll have to
get you on more often. You're super knowledgeable, so
super keen.
Yep. All right, we'll catch you guys soon.
All right, take care, guys.